be the one on the left. There were some thefts at the supermarket. There were 3
Sa tulong ng Revicon Forte, di kapusang lakas para sa trabahong pangmatagalan.
Do you want to win games that seem unwinnable? Are you tired of relying on teammates to carry you? Then you have come to the right place. We are starting off with rotation, since that's the first thing that separates an inexperienced jungler from a high-level jungler. You only want to contest the litho if you are starting red buff and the litho is red side, otherwise it will slow down your rotation. How do you know which buff to start? Usually you always want to start with the buff on the opposite side of gold lane, that way you can easily focus on the enemy marksman. Some junglers are mana dependent and need to start the blue buff.
No mana. You have no mana, bitch. You have no mana!
Or maybe the enemy has a Franco or Hilda and you want to start the red buff to avoid an early invade. This is the rotation I recommend for solo queue. Start the blue, straight to red buff, take the creep above the red buff and the other creep below turtle. Then you should be level 4 and ready to gank. Start red, take the creep above the red buff and contest the litho. Remember, if your tank and mage isn't supporting contesting litho, you might just want to go straight to blue. Then you take the creep above blue, maybe the gold crap, and then you're all set. In the early game, your first mission is getting level 4. That's also why you should not fight before level 4 unless you see a guaranteed kill. Mia tried to delay my level 4, so I had to take the creep. If I don't get 4, I can't gank her lane. Here it didn't make sense for me to help Harley because I wouldn't have won the fight or saved him, and the enemy tank could be camping. In the first 5 minutes, minion gold is reduced by 70% for the jungler, so you shouldn't clear minions unless you are defending a tower or want to push an enemy tower. And the early game speed is everything. You don't want to waste any time. That's also why you never stay in a lane. Secure the kill, push the tower and move on. It's very important that you don't die in the early game. Kill the enemy marksman if you have the opportunity, but pay attention to a possible counter gank. Oftentimes the enemy jungler will gank the same lane as you. Pull the turtle to your side. That way you'll be less exposed to an ambush. Keep your distance from the enemy tank or anyone else who has a stun when contesting turtle and try to combine a skill with your retribution. The higher the level, the more damage your retribution will deal. That's why it's important to stay ahead even when your team is behind. Maybe you noticed that sometimes your retribution damage is higher than what you see on the display. That's because junglers has burn damage. Whatever you hit in the jungle will be affected by burn instantly, if it's a creep, a buff, turtle, or lord. The burn damage is HP based, so if you're playing a tank jungler it could be 500 extra, and if you play assassin it would scale from 100 to 300. So if you're trying to steal an objective, you will have the advantage against the enemy jungler since his burn already begun, but your retribution will have that instant burn. As long as it's your first time hitting it, or if you hit it then walk away and come back, the burn will reset. You shouldn't force the turtle if you have low HP and the team isn't near you already. You can always see if enemy jungler started blue or red by checking their gold. Blue buff gives 126 gold, while red buff only gives 120 gold. Zilong has the same gold as me. That means he started blue buff. There's a big chance he will go for the litho after blue. That gives me plenty of time to invade. After invading his red buff, I'm gonna hurry to my own red buff so he doesn't steal it. That's why I'm saving my retribution. Here I can see the enemy tank is top and the mage is clearing mid. I know Ling pulled the blue buff into the bush. This gives me enough information to make a successful invade. In this clip, I just saw Hayabusa on his red side, so I thought he would gank Beatrix or go for turtle. but little did I know he was watching me from the bush. Estes were low HP, but I didn't have mana. Instead, I went for Hayes Blue. And I also got the turtle. So even though he was the one starting the invade, I won the trade, because he was wasting time. If the enemy are pulling your buff into the bush and your team isn't helping, it's usually better to just give the buff. Here I was lucky that I still got it with my first skill, but if I went into the bush I would have been dead for sure, since there were 3 people in there. I didn't use Retribution on Turtle because Martis is dead, so this is the perfect time for me to invade. But instead of just invading the buff, killing him in the process will give a bigger advantage. I waited for him to finish his second skill so he didn't have any escape.
Okay.
Hacks, bro. Freaking hacks. It is.
Reported. Woo!
Jungling is essentially a numbers game. Don't get mad if you get invaded. Instead, find another way to get the gold back. Here are some examples of a good trade. I saw that Sun was doing my red buff, so I went straight on the turtle. I also wanted to take his red buff, but Kufr knew what I was up to. The enemy took the turtle quick, and we traded with a gold lane tower. The turtle was up, but there was too much going on in the bot lane, so I prioritized ganking. Never let your guards down. Everyone will focus you, so make sure you're always ready, even when you're not. Pay attention to enemy spells so you don't get surprised by a Petrify, Execute, or Vengeance.
Hey, bro, watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
Now what the hell? Say hello to my little friend!
I saw the whole team was in bot, so I knew I could tower dive the mage without getting punished. I wanted to invade their red buff, but then I saw they were all in bot lane. I cleared mid because I thought they might walk through their jungle to defend the mid tower. I could have killed Nana too, but Nathan might have killed me and Lord was about to spawn. They wanted to push the mid tower, so I waited in this bush to ambush them. Sometimes you can use your teammates as bait. If you're playing an assassin, you always want to focus the squishy backline.
Hey, let me heal you. Let me heal you.
If the whole team is clumped up together, try to wait until the enemy use their CC skills. That way you can just clean up and turn the fight around. Remember, you are playing a carry role. Even if your team is losing the fight, you can still turn it around, as long as you keep up in gold. After winning a fight, you always want to look for objectives. Turtle, Lord, towers, or even a buff will matter. If the enemy is doing the Lord and your team is not close by, or you are behind in gold, it's sometimes better to give them the Lord. But if you focus on the enemy, you can still turn it around. Maybe they got the Lord, but since they all died, we won the trade. This game we were behind a lot, but I saw the enemy were fighting top lane, so I went for a risky play on the Lord. Because of that, we ended up making a comeback. If you have a big lead around the 7-minute and your team wants to do the turtle, ask them to wait since the Lord spawns at 8 minutes. The same goes if you have a big lead and the team wants to do Lord around 11 minutes, then it's better to wait for the enhanced Lord at minute 12. If you are behind in gold and there is no way you are going to kill the enemy alone, don't try. Then it's better to farm, split push, or regroup with the mage and roamer. You should always build depending on the enemy lineup, even though some junglers have one build that works the best. Sometimes you want to switch it up.
Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel.
You should never be surprised while jungling. Every move is a calculated risk. If something happens that you didn't expect, learn from it, but never blame others. You can't control your team in solo queue. You can only control yourself.
New Tag, the Muskin 66 of vitamin C, D, and zinc.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Trade, zone, and rotation is the key to win your lane in the early game. If you decide to trade health with your opponent, it's important that you know who will win in a 1 versus 1. I was trading with Sylvana because I know Yu Zhong beats her in early game. I was able to poke Sylvana enough for her to recall. Because of that, Sylvana missed a full minion wave, losing 183 gold, plus I got some gold from the tower plate. Remember, first blood only gives you 200 gold. Now I am 325 gold ahead of her, plus a half level. If you're playing against a hero that hides under the turret, you can deny them gold and XP by zoning them, also called freezing the wave. These heroes are great for zoning, since they can output a big amount of damage without using their ultimate, while they have a way to regain their health. Lane cut is key when it comes to rotating from your lane. Since the minions spawn every 30 seconds, cutting the lane will give you more time to rotate. Here I saw the enemy jungler and mage were in bot lane, therefore I didn't need to help securing the turtle. Instead, I pulled the red buff into the bush, so Martis could steal it, but he didn't come. I simply waited for Benedetta to go for her red buff so I could ambush her. A high cut is when you clear the lane between the inner turret and the inhibitor turret. A high cut gives you even more time to rotate. This is only recommended when the enemies are visible on the other side of the map, since you won't have anywhere to run. These three heroes are great for lane cutting, because they all has dash and wave clear. Looking at your enemy's position on the map is another way to know when it's a good time to cut your lane. In this clip I didn't pay attention but still made it out alive because of Cho's skill set. If you're about to cut the lane in early game, but gets caught by the enemy, just leave. There's no need to force it. Huh? Don't be like this guy. When your team is taking the turtle, it is your job to zone away the enemy, provide vision, and if possible stun the enemy jungler. If the enemy is taking the turtle, you need to ask yourself, is this a winnable fight? Is our jungler close by? Always wait for the right moment. If the enemy is invading your side of the map, it is crucial that you provide assistance for your jungler. If you're alone to defend a 4-man gank in mid-game, it's usually better to let them take your turret, instead of dying in the process. Use the scoreboard to determine the battles you win. If your jungler is invading, it's important that you are there to back him up and zone the enemy away. You don't always have to attack them, just your presence can be enough to make the enemy take distance. You always want to focus the squishy backline, which is mage, marksman, and sometimes jungler.
Boom. I'm joking!
Easy.
Scoop no, rat no, who snap?
The tank isn't the only one who can start team fights.
This is big brain time.
This is Sparta!
Patience is key. As EXP laner you are more than just a front line, always engage when they least expect it. Here you can see the tank went in, but missed his ultimate, therefore I waited until the time was right. I might have lost my life, but we won the fight, and the game. That's the price you pay as EXP laner. If you're rotating from your lane, but don't see any nearby fights, split pushing undefended turrets is a good way to give your team an advantage.
2 hours later.
Instead of pushing the same tower as your team, pushing multiple lanes will create more pressure on the enemy. I saw Hilda was pushing the bot lane, while the rest of enemy team were fighting top, therefore I went for a risky play. I pinged my teammates to attack so the enemies couldn't recall and stop me from ending. The mini-map is very important. A good EXP laner looks at the map every 5 seconds. Tell your allies when the enemy EXP is missing, so they know he's coming. Stay hidden in bushes as much as possible. There's a higher chance of getting ganked if the enemy has vision on you. If someone is pushing your lane, or trying to backdoor, you should be the first to retreat or leave the fight to defend. Accept when you are behind and be humble in your lane, don't trade. Don't take 1v1s and be careful of getting ambushed when you are rotating. Never take jungle creeps before 10 minutes, unless you're invading. You jungler need it more and you only gain 40% of the gold. You are only allowed to take the gold crap. But always leave it for your jungler when he is close by. Make sure to always last hit your minions. Last hitting gives around 40 gold more each wave, in the early game. If you stay in tower range when it's getting destroyed, you will receive a gold bonus.
And his name is...
Yeah.
Now we play the waiting game. The Black Dragon has arrived!
Hello.
It's John Cena!
Life is unpredictable. That's why I decided to get life insurance as a safety net to protect myself and
Are you on a permanent lose streak? Are you tired of getting blamed? It's always the roamer's fault, right? The roamer's number on the red side of the map.
I'm white.
I'm black. I'm yellow. I'm a fidget spinner.
Camping is more than just sitting in a bush. It's all about finding the right bush, especially there are 3 enemies in the bottom lane. I went to just took a turret in the top lane. Our inner turret has protection, so they probably won't continue pushing. If they're gonna rotate to mid, they have these 2 options. A smart player would just have recalled, but not all players think about the risk. That's why we're camping in this bush, hoping they make a mistake. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like, so it will be recommended to all the inexperienced roamers out there. You never know, they could be your future teammates. As roamer, you should try to annoy the jungler as much as possible. Marksman whenever you see the opportunity.
Here we go!
Has their ultimate available before you engage. Go for their marksman whenever you see the opportunity, but if he isn't nearby, any squishy hero should be your prime target. You should never focus the tank, but if he is out of position and you have backup, don't hesitate to kill him.
Fight back! Fight back!
Sometimes your team don't notice when you engage. That's Pay very close attention to the minimap. It is your strongest weapon. It's important to support your jungler when he is invading. If your jungler is doing the turtle or lord, these 3 bushes are important to check. After you've recalled, look at the map to see who needs your help. Maybe our jungle is trying to contest the turtle, or there are 3 enemies pressuring the gold lane, or the mage could need your vision to rotate. If your ADC keeps feeding and engage in bad fights even when you're with them, you're usually better off playing around the jungler or mage. That's called estimating the win condition. Of course, everyone makes mistakes and have bad games, but if you don't see this player being able to carry or stay alive, helping the jungler can be more beneficial. Remember, kills are not your priority. If you kill an enemy but die in the process, it's a bad trade since you give the enemy assist gold. Also, getting a kill as the roamer doesn't benefit the team. A lot of players are using the recommended builds, but learning to build depending on the enemy team will make you improve significantly. Because there is so much information in this 7-minute video, I recommend watching it a few times to memorize all the things we talked about, or perhaps writing it down. The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war.
Cheese Whiz! Help strengthen bones with a strength builder of calcium from Cheese Whiz.
As a marksman, you have the gold lane, arguably the most frustrating and difficult role to master. You might not get any help at all, but everyone will target you. So how do you stay alive? By being the smartest guy in the game. If you want to get a free epic skin, make sure to watch until the end of this early game. In the laning phase, it's important that you last hit your minions. Be aware of potential ganks. And don't die. Since most junglers finish their rotation between the 1st and 2nd minute, try to play extra safe between the minute 1 and minute 2 to avoid the obvious gank. Choosing the right marksman is very important to win the laning phase. Some marksmen are strong early game, where others are weak and needs to wait for their core items. Knowing how to counter the enemy marksman can also be very beneficial. During the laning phase, but at the end of the day, having a good response to the enemy marksman pick will be enough. Please note that these guides are all based on laning phase 1 versus 1 and does not consider team fights or late game.
My life be like,
In winning matchups, you want to pressure the enemy, make them recall, and take advantage of your strengths. In losing matchups, your goal is to stall the time for as long as you can, wait for ganks or core items, respect your opponents when they're stronger. You should only trade health with your opponent if you are the winning matchup or you're confident that you win the trade.
Are you sure you want to delete Hanabi?
Let me think about that.
Delete! 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 I wanna be appreciated. I wanna be appreciated.
Freezing the lane is an important part of gold lane. There is 2 ways to do it. A mid-freeze can be risky because it puts you closer to the enemy tower, while a tower freeze is safe because you stand near your own. A mid-freeze happens naturally. All you have to do is stand in between your enemy and the minions. Punish your opponent when they try to farm. It's only recommended if the enemy is busy on the other side of the map, since it will leave you vulnerable to ganks. To do a tower freeze, you clear the 2 small minions and let the enemy clear his wave. Then you hold the cannon minion and stand in front of your own tower so it doesn't take damage. The goal of a tower freeze is to create space for your teammates to gank your opponent while keeping you safe under the turret. Denying XP and gold is a bonus, but not necessary. If you see the enemy recalling, clear the wave as fast as possible and push the tower, but keep an eye on the map. A tower freeze can also be used to prevent the enemy from starting a mid-freeze if you are losing your matchup. Don't get mad when you're getting ganked. Be smart. Do whatever you can to survive. If you don't see enemies on the map, always expect that they're camping in your lane. If you think someone is camping in this bush, hitting the gold crap from a distance will reveal them. But be aware, this trick only works if they're standing in the middle of the bush. If 3 or more enemies wants to push your tower, it's better to give them the tower and run. It's not worth dying for. If teammates are nearby, request backup. They might just come and help you.
Oh shit, not good.
But most importantly, don't panic and keep your head cool.
Don't panic, don't panic, don't panic, don't panic, don't panic!
Pushing a tower is risky. That's why you always want to estimate the threat. When all enemies are visible on the map, you can push safely. When 2 or more enemies are visible on the map, there's a medium chance that you'll be ganked. If no enemies are present on the map, there is a high threat, and in that case you never want to be pushing the tower alone. You shouldn't rotate in the beginning of the game, unless you play a strong early game marksman and the enemy is low HP. You can start rotating when the first tower falls in your lane, regardless if it's your own tower or the enemy tower. Depending how much vision you have on the enemies, these are the optimal paths for rotation. The most common mistake I see marksman players make is that they get a lead during the laning phase, then they start rotating and gets killed. Being a fed marksman puts a bounty on your head, since the enemy team would want to shut you down and stop you from snowballing. That's why it's important to take caution throughout the whole game. Notice how I'm waiting for the tank to give vision. If you're having problems getting vision from your roamer, I recommend using this quick chat.
Get vision for me.
What are you doing?
Huh?
What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
An ally has been slain.
You have seen Benny QT do it.
They try to jump in southward, turns around, finds Skyline as well spin, then push through. Benny, I can't take.
Marksman is the most vulnerable role. You never want to engage first. The key to a good position is to isolate yourself from the fight, so that you are only in reach for 1 or 2 enemies, while keeping distance from the rest. That way you can output a lot of damage without being in great risk of getting targeted. Wait until they use their CC skills before cleaning up the fight. Let the jungler have the gold crap in early game. Buy steel leg plates in early game if the enemy gold laner and jungler is physical damage. Bait your opponent if your teammates are camping. And remember, if the enemy marksman plays suddenly aggressive, it could mean that he has somebody camping in the bush. Another mistake I see marksmen make is when they get behind in gold and get desperate to farm. Don't die for gold crap, and please, don't die for a minion. If you're 2v1 in gold lane, that's a good thing, because that means your team is at a number advantage. That's also why you should tell your roamer that you can solo your lane if he wants to babysit you.
When the roamer has been feeding in your lane.
Don't call me. Don't come by my house. We're done.
You should never die to get a kill or be far away from the team in mid and late game. Stick with the tank as much as you can. Remember, if your teammates don't gank you, you can ask for ganks or ask to swap lanes with EXP. You always want to be in the place where you can farm most freely. Always try to split push whenever you have the opportunity, but be quick and read the map. Enemies will target you if they see you're alone. Sometimes you feel like taking a risk to get a kill, but when playing marksman, the risk usually isn't worth it. Here I was just lucky that I survived.
Marksman is both the weakest and strongest role in the game. Know your power, but remember your limits.